Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's the top of the hour, and I want to be sensitive and respectful to everyone's time. Hello, everybody. My name is Sophie Ziegler. I'm the events coordinator here at Library Juice. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited that you are here to celebrate this new title. I'm going to just say a couple of things about Library Juice and all the things that we have going on, and then I'll pass it off to today's speakers. Library Juice has three main arms, the first of which that we tend to talk about is Library Juice Academy. This is ongoing professional development for all of us in librarianship and archives and all related fields of information studies and sciences. These are options to learn things that we might not have learned in our original training, going through library school, going through archive school. These are also ways to stay up to date on things that have changed and ways to catch up on things with our jobs change beneath us. We have certificate programs and other ways to follow tracks to show mastery of a topic. We also have a la carte courses, so you can just pick and choose what you're interested in learning. There's a lot of great courses, new ones happening every month. These are asynchronous, Moodle based. You can find more about all of that at libraryjuiceacademy.com. The second arm of what we do is Library Juice Press, which puts out books like the one that we're celebrating today. We tend to focus on critical angles of LIS, again, writ large, to include all the topics that all of us do in the ecosystem of librarians and archives, libraries and archives, I should say. And we publish books as well as journals. We are an imprint of Litwin Books, so you can learn more about us at litwinbooks.com and see all the great titles coming up, see the wonderful titles that are already out, a growing number of which are available as ebooks for those of us who love ebooks. And then finally, we have Library Juice Connections, which is what brings us all together today. This is the arm that tries to keep conversations going about librarianship, about archive science, all the things that are happening now, all the ways that we want, all the conversations that we think we should be having. We're trying to present a forum for this. So Library Juice Connections works with the press to bring together authors as of today to celebrate new books as they come out. We also work with instructors from Library Juice Academy to talk about the courses that they do, the passions that they have. We also work with anybody in the field interested in presenting on a topic. So we've got really interesting talks coming up on AI and the role that it should be having and the concerns that maybe we should be having about the role that they're having in libraries, because our community said that this is a thing that they want to talk about. If there's anything you ever want to talk about, I hope you will tell us about it. You can find more about how to contact us and a growing number of recorded events at our library, at our website, libraryjuiceconnections.org. And that is everything that I wanted to say. I'm so happy. And now I shall be passing it off to our moderator for today. It's all yours.
Oh, thank you, Sophie. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everyone joining us from different parts of the world. Welcome to Archival Pedagogies Panel 2, and thank you for being part of this conversation today. My name is Sepo Museu. This panel brings together archival educators and practitioners working in different national and institutional contexts. While archival education is practiced globally, it is shaped by local histories, institutional settings, and professional traditions. And today's session reflects that diversity. And it gives us an opportunity to hear how archival pedagogy is understood and practiced in Estonia, Poland, Hungary, and the United States. So each speaker will present their perspective, after which we'll open the floor for questions and discussions with the audience. Before we do that, I would like to invite Magda. Magda, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Magdalena Wiśniewska-Drewniak. I'm one of the editors of the Archival Pedagogy books. And I would like to firstly say a few words from the perspective on one of the editors, because I will be also taking your time afterwards as one of the authors. But I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to the other editors, James, Pim, and Seppo, for their dedication and hard work on this book. I also extend my deep gratitude to the authors, not only for preparing their text and for generously sharing their knowledge and experience in this way, but also for their patience. The entire process dragged on for quite a long time, Along the way, we changed publishers, so approximately 2.5 years passed between sending out the call for papers and now, the moment of publication. So thank you for your patience and for not losing faith in this project. We sincerely thank our review board as well, since the chapters we received were highly diverse in terms of themes and geography. We decided to review them in a journal-like mode, that is, with 2 or 3 reviewers per chapter, rather than 2 or 3 people for the whole book. The goal of this approach was to ensure the publication's quality, but it also took a lot of work, countless emails, and deep engagements from the reviewers. So therefore, I extend my profound thanks to our reviewers, Maryna Mfo, Weimei, Mariam, Azman, Monica Nampombe, Heather Fiorella, Charles, Florian, and Jonathan. I hope I haven't omitted anyone. Thanks to their dedication and expertise, we were able to ensure the highest possible quality of this book. And from my perspective, and I am from Poland and I work at a Polish university, I am thrilled that this book is so profoundly international. Much of the archival science literature in international circulation comes from just a few countries, mainly the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, which could give the impression that archival science is most developed there, and this is certainly not the whole truth, including in the realm of archival education, as I hope this publication demonstrates. I also sincerely believe that making archival education more international is, on one hand, very necessary, but on the other, quite challenging. Among other reasons, due to terminology differences in archival traditions, legal issues, and the regulation of the archivist and records manager profession. And I hope that in the near future we will see further activities aimed at diversifying the dialogue on archival education. Thank you again, and I hand the floor back to Tsepo.
Thanks, Magda, for that. I will begin by briefly introducing each speaker and then inviting them to speak. Our first speaker is Bridget Cabal. Bridget Cabal graduated from the University of Tartu as a historian in 1999. Since then, she has been working as an archivist at the Estonian National Archives, having been a senior official communications manager since 2004 and currently serving as the head of foreign affairs. She closely collaborates in the field of Estonian archival education with colleagues from the Department of Archival Studies of the Institute of History and Archaeology of the University of Tartu. She has held the position of president of ICARAS, the International Center for Archival Studies, since May 2023, having been a member of the board since 2017. Bridget, I now invite you to speak.
Hello and good day to everyone, and I'm really delighted to be with you here today. And so I will make a very brief overview about our article, and I'm saying our, so meaning that my co-author and the main author of the article is Aige Rahitam, and she is the chair of Institute of History and Archaeology at the University of Tartu, and also a professor on archival studies at the same university. And I'm representing the National Archives of Estonia. So my current position is the head of foreign affairs, but I started my work as an archivist more than 25 years ago. Also graduated by the archival studies from Tartu University. So our article is foremost about the collaboration of the National Archives with the University of Tartu, which goes back to the birth of Estonian National Archival Studies in the early 1920s. So over the past century, this collaboration has undergone significant changes. And our article examines different forms of collaboration, focusing on the last decade, marking the main directions and further opportunities concerning education, dissemination, and the most recent challenges in the digital world. So I won't touch any longer the period of the between the two world wars, but I will just mention one of the names. The discipline of archival studies was founded by Arno Raphael Sederberg, being a professor of Estonian and Nordic history, who arrived at the Tartu University from Finland, and also became the founder of Estonian archival world. Let's say so that as soon as 1920, Estonia already had its own archival board, and the grounds of the Estonian state archival system was let down during that era. So now jumping over the Soviet occupation time after the Second World War, so throughout 50 years, Estonia was occupied by the Soviet Union, and even if the studies on archival science were not there by name, the archival science was taught in parallel of Estonian history at the University of Tartu. But after the Soviet occupation in early 1990s, there were 7 chairs, including the chair of archival studies, established at the Department of History. And another name I would highlight here is Professor Aadu Must, who was elected in 1997 as a professor of archival studies and was the head of department until 2014, and now thereafter the professor of archival studies is Vaidi Rahitam, co-author of our article. So, I would very slightly point out just 4 main challenges we have had during the past 20-25 years, and most importantly during the last decade. The first is the digital turn. Digital turn is changed the content of the curriculum of archival studies in order to keep pace with rapid changes. And also both the digital content and digitally created and digitized content from analog media is here with us besides the paper records. And due to the growth of the amount of archival material and mass digitization and free access on the web, these are the main issues how the students can find the necessary data before starting up any of the researches. And for example, already 20 years ago, in the period of 2004-2005, the National Archives opened the central catalog system online. So we administrate all the descriptions of every single archival entity on the title level. So since 2009, all the descriptions of archival records, more than 10 million of archival records, not a big number, but the full number in Estonia, is available online. So more than 17 years by now. And the search engines and how to cope with basic principles has become a priority in teaching, as first-year students need this knowledge before visiting physically the archives. The second thing is the practice. The archival practice is the most important step for the students and compulsory for those specializing in archival studies. The aim is to give students the very first experience of practical archival work. And for instance, 3 years ago, for the students, it was possible to contribute to creating a manuscript identification model and also to provide information with keywords and arrange archival material. But most of the work was done on the digital content. Concerning the main areas as acquisition, appraisal, preservation, and digital preservation, every single student can become familiar with our user services, responding to information requests, also the social media engagement, designing educational material, or even work related to crowdsourcing environments. And by special agreement, the students can undergo practical training in some other memory institution, or at some of the ministries, private enterprises, or by even organizing a festival or conference. So now the third point, archival education within the National Archives activities, as we are also highlighting this part of our daily basis workflows here at the National Archives. By now, there are more than 30 demonstrative classes in the school program, most of which are related to the state history and civic education, but there are also classes related to topics dealt with in geography, chemistry, media, or art history, for instance. And also relying on the state curriculum, it enables the teacher to study, extend, or repeat the topic at the archives. And in every lesson, the students have the opportunity to study sources, the archival sources. And mostly they try to read the sources independently and form their own opinion. And now the fourth and the most important part in our article is the collaboration. So the collaboration between the archives and the university is characterized by several research projects that have been designed and carried out together. Just for one example, we have had and also currently running the project of transcribing and tagging Estonian 19th century parish court protocols using a crowdsourcing platform. And involvement of volunteers in describing those archival sources has been also one main component of the digital march here in the collaboration forum. And to sum it up, the National Archives has launched by now 4 crowdsourcing initiatives, and all of them we have had the students of archival studies together with us. And during the recent years, also the projects of the department or the Institute of History have contributed to a closer cooperation with language technologists, and thereby digital humanities also is one of the primary interdisciplinary way of cooperation. And thanks to the experiences of the experts from memory institutions, we can offer jointly trainings considering the developments of the digital area. And finally, collaboration between the University of Tartu and the memory institutions and the National Archives builds the confidence that our language, culture, and history here in Estonia will be preserved and also will be increased in the form of public interest, but also the higher education and the wider awareness of the past. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Bridget, for keeping within time. You really took exactly 10 minutes. Thank you so much. And our next speaker is Magdalena Wisniewska-Junak. I try to pronounce that name, it's very difficult. So Magda is an assistant professor at the Faculty of History, Nicholas Copernicus University in Turan, Poland. She defended her doctoral thesis in history with specialization in archives in 2018. Her research interests include community archives and research methods in archival science. She authored many publications, including a monograph on Polish community archives, and managed 2 research projects on this subject. She works closely with the Center for Community Archives and is involved in international cooperation in archival research and education. Magda, over to you.
Yes. Thank you again, Seppo. Let me share my screen because I prepared a short presentation for you. Can you see? Oh no, not yet. Yeah. Can you see the presentation?
Still coming? Yes.
Yes, you can. Okay. Well, I'm one of 3 authors. So thanks to my co-authors Agnieszka Rosa and Marlena Jabłońska. Our chapter is called Teaching Archival Science in Poland, Historical and Contemporary Contexts and Current Challenges. And in fact, this is an overview of just some information about the current state of archival education in Poland nowadays. We started with this phrase, the teaching of archival science is notably shaped by a variety of contexts and is therefore quite complicated to discuss in international dialogue. And I believe this is something that speaks for the whole book, actually. But some contexts that I wanted to point out are the practical nature of the discipline, which highly impacts connections to the landscape of archival and heritage institutions that might, those connections that might be formed between archival programs and elements of this landscape, so archival institutions. There are different archival traditions in different regions of the world, in different countries. There are different historical backgrounds and traditions of teaching archival science, and we talk about this in our chapter a bit too when it comes to Poland. The status of archival science as a scientific discipline is also different. As Birgit mentioned, in Estonia, this is clearly part of history. It's the same in Poland, while in other countries, also in Europe, it might be very different and might be part of library and information studies. And then the legal environment. This is something that also shapes this landscape of contexts impacting teaching archival science. Because legal environment firstly shapes the higher education system, and secondly, it shapes the archival system, obviously. In the chapter, we briefly described history of archival education in Poland, and definitely our department is a big part of this history. Also, Birgit used this word chair. We also use this, but here is department. So let's keep this one for now. So all 3 authors, me including, we work at the Department of Archival Science and Records Management at Nicolaus Copernicus University in Toruń. This department is situated in the Institute of History and Archival Science, which is part of Faculty of History or Faculty of Historical Sciences, to be more precise in translating this term. We have got 10 research and teaching staff members, and we've been teaching archival science since 1951. But before that was historically part of the discipline of history. So our students were historians who specialized in archival science. That changed in 2006 when we in Toruń opened the first, let's say, separate or independent program in archival science and records management. And I also am an alumni of this, graduate of this program. We have got this on both levels, I mean at bachelor level and at master's level. And actually this year, we will be celebrating 2 very big anniversaries, 75th anniversaries of starting archival education at our university, and the 20th anniversary of having this separate independent archives program. There will be a conference, and I'm sad there will be a ball as well with dancing and stuff. So we are very excited to host these events later this year. On the slide, you can also see a website address of our department if you would like to get more familiar with us and what we do. So in the chapter, we generally describe different elements of contemporary landscape and contemporary challenges we face when it comes to teaching teaching archival science. So firstly, that will be recruitment process itself. We can see that the number of students have dropped recently, generally for higher education in Poland, especially for the humanities and social sciences. So the recruitment process itself demands a lot of work from both administrative and staff and the faculty. There are also ghost students, which is quite an interesting phenomenon that can be experienced in many European countries, and at least in some. So these are, because higher education is free in Poland, there's only really tiny recruitment fee at the very beginning. So there is number of students who actually enroll to studies, but then they only collect their student IDs because there are some perks of that, like reduced fare for public transport, and then they never show up actually. But we can remove them from our student lists only after more or less 10 months, 11 months after the recruitment process. So this is something that is quite challenging when it comes to organizing classes, for example. Because the number of people who recruited at the very beginning, it's not the number of students who actually will come to classes. And then this phenomenon of dropout, and this is something that is experienced in many European countries. So the fact that students actually start studying, but they never finish for a myriad of different reasons. Those can be either personal or financial or health related, or just because they are not happy with what they encountered at the university. We have got a very practical profile of our program. We try to maintain that also with contacts with different types of archival and heritage institutions in the region. So this is something that also takes up the faculty's time, but we want to also include in the program these so-called competencies of the future, which means that when it comes to technology, for example, we just don't want our students to know how to use technologies, different types of new technologies, but we want them to be able to cope by themselves later on. So those competencies of the future are something like thinking out of the box, creative adaptation of solutions, analytical skills, proficiency in handling new media, ability to be a lifelong learner, and so on. And then in the article, we also discuss this relationship between archival science and history. As I said, in Poland, this is still archival science is still part of history. This is not a separate independent discipline. And this is why, for example, Seppo mentioned that I graduated, when it comes to PhD, I have a PhD in history with specialization in archives, because I cannot have PhD in archival science and records management. But the fact that archival science is part of history, legally speaking, means also that teachers who teach archival science at the university need to have their scholarship that is both in archival science and in history. In fact, we have got very weird and complicated system of assessment of university employees that also impacts that. So I really encourage you to read the chapter. And if you want to, there is also, as before, a website of our department. Feel invited to look at it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Magda. Participants, please note that you can always ask questions. In the meantime, you can just throw in your questions on the chat box. The question and answer session will come later. So our next speaker is Adam Crispek from the United States. Adam Crispek is an associate professor in the School of Library Information Science at Simmons University in Boston, Massachusetts. His research and teaching interests involve archives, digital preservation, government records, research data management, information policy, and preservation of social media. He holds a PhD from the University of Michigan School of Information and was a postdoctoral fellow in agriculture data curation at the U.S. Department of Agriculture National Agricultural Library and the University of Maryland College Park through a cooperative agreement before joining the Simmons faculty. A 2016-17 Research Data Alliance US RDA Data Share Fellow, his work has been published in scholarly venues including Archival Science, JASIS and T, the American Archivist, Data Science Journal, and Library Trends. Adam, please go ahead.
Great. Thanks so much for that introduction, and thanks for having me today. Really happy to be a part of this panel, and really honored to have a chapter as part of this book. As Magda mentioned earlier, the book project has been a long time in the making, and on behalf of myself and my co-author on this chapter, Rebecca Frank, who is an assistant professor at the University of Michigan School of Information, we wanted to, just say how honored we are to be a part of such an international and collaborative book project. So our chapter is titled "Moving Beyond Empty Words: Integrating Climate Change into Archival Education," and it's a little bit of kind of a slightly more narrow and focused look at one aspect of our archival education journey and some observations on the state of the field at the moment. It was born out of conversations Rebecca and I had in the time frame of 2019, 2020. And at this point, we have been teaching in the field for around a decade, and we both often teach in the US. Well, we actually both have taught internationally as well, but introductory archives courses as well as related courses on more advanced archival topics, and courses in sort of adjacent fields such as digital preservation, digital curation, and electronic records management. And as part of those courses, we were increasingly seeing intersection between the ideas and topics and conversations that we wanted to lead students through in the courses and issues related to climate change. And a lot of this came to a head in fall 2019. And if you can remember back, anyone can remember back to that time, that month, there was a global climate strike that was led in fall 2019 by Greta Thunberg, who was kind of experiencing maybe her first wave of a rise to prominence as an international climate activist. And that climate strike had a broad effect around the world. And in the field of archives, it had the effect of kind of catalyzing a number of nascent preliminary conversations around the intersection between archival work and climate change issues in our field. Both Rebecca and I encountered that intersection personally in our teaching practice. Rebecca at the time was teaching in Germany, in Berlin, and her students all were participating in the strike. And so she decided to kind of engage them where they're at, meet the students where they're at, and design some learning modules around this issue, which students cared so deeply about, and connect it to the content of her course, which was on electronic records management. And myself, I connected with some folks that are still working actually as part of a primarily US based group of archivists called Project ARC. ARCC stands for Archivists Responding to Climate Change. And that's a group of people that have been collecting resources, publishing materials, organizing events, and coordinating efforts, again, primarily in the US, but also around the world on the intersection of archives and climate change. So at that time, we both kind of started to think about how this topic, which is something that a lot of people care about kind of in the abstract, and maybe think about choices they make in their lives around like what kind of car you might choose to drive, or what kinds of food you might choose to eat, or what kinds of products you might choose to buy. We wanted to take this idea and think about how to really kind of connect students with different points or different moments in our field that highlight the choices that we make as archival professionals and how they might also have impact on climate change. And I want to read a couple of short quotes from the chapter, because I think they kind of state what I'm talking about here a little bit better than I can speak myself. What we were thinking and bringing to this space, or to this conversation, was also a really deep understanding of the timescales that we're trying to get our students to think about in archival work. We believe that integrating climate change into archival work is a natural extension of this existing aspect of archival pedagogy. The work of archivists and the work of preserving records in whatever format demands that we think about long time horizons. We think about users who have not yet been born, and we think about the tasks required to sustain our collections into the distant future. So in this present moment, maintaining that perspective almost demands engaging with the challenges posed by climate change to our collections and our profession as a whole, as well as a consideration of how we can take steps within our own spheres of influence to be more sustainable in our archival work. So in the chapter, we provide that summary, and then we also have a moment for each of us to kind of talk more personally about the stories I just mentioned with Rebecca's interactions with her students in Germany in 2019, and then myself in the US with the Project ARC folks. And since then, we also started to develop this idea through a number of workshops at the Archival Education and Research Institute, ARI, which is a institute and conference that some of you may be familiar with. And so we'd also like to thank the ARI community for helping us to kind of develop this idea and continue these conversations as well. Since then, we've continued to develop and expand this aspect of our teaching practice, and have seen a positive response from students kind of confirming that this is an important part of archival work, or rather important part of archival training, and a worthwhile conversation to be having in an environment where there's so many topics to pick from that we know we can't really do everything deeply within one course. So just to kind of briefly wrap up, I want to share one more reflection on between the two of us, we've taught these kinds of topics in the US as well as in Germany, and then also myself. I've taught a couple times in the United Arab Emirates and had these conversations be part of my coursework as well. And one thing that we've noticed especially the last few times we've taught these modules, students have a really deep, innate, and personal connection and sense about how archival work connects to climate change. They've shared stories of flooding events at local museums and archives, conversations they've had with insurance adjusters in their workplaces, and how they were able to kind of shape archival work, archival projects rather, focused on things like disaster plans into broader conversations about climate change and sustainability for their collections. So to kind of to wrap up here by more formally plugging the book, if you are able to get your hands on a copy of the book and you look at our chapter, we have an appendix at the back of the chapter that includes 3 learning objects, which we talk about in the chapter as well. But we've got a discussion prompt around archives and climate change, a sample debate exercise for students to engage with each other in the classroom, and then another exercise on the intersections between climate change and the Digital Curation Center DCC lifecycle model, which is a model that many of you perhaps are familiar with for thinking about electronic records. So I will end it there. Thank you so much again for being a part of this, and really, really honored to be able to share this and hopefully continue this conversation with people who read the book and want to do more of this work. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. We straight away go to our last speaker of the day, Laura Chonka from Hungary. Laura Chonka is a historian, an archival educator, and a consultant for museum pedagogy. She holds a PhD in history. She is working in the Hungarian National Archives of Hungary as the head of archival education and publishes regularly on the subject, besides leading courses, workshops, and giving university seminars. As a historian, her research focuses primarily on the era of Hungarian Arrow Cross Party, 1944 to 1995, and on the history of the Hungarian Soviet Republic. Laura, I invite you to speak.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Dear participants and dear colleagues, I would like to talk briefly about my article. In my article, I examine archival education at the National Archives of Hungary, with particular focus on its development in recent years and its connection to Hungarian public education. The main argument of my article is that archives can function as important non-formal educational settings that actively support learning processes and contribute to the development of key competencies of the students. At the same time, my chapter addresses a key challenge, the relatively low visibility of archives within the Hungarian public education. The archives appear only minimally in the national curriculum, and many teachers and primary and secondary school students have very limited direct experience with archival institutions. My workplace, the National Archives of Hungary, is the largest public collection in Hungary, with more than 300,000 meters of records. In recent years, my institution has focused more on accessibility, digitalization, and education. And this has created the basis for archival education as the structured activity. In this context, I think that archival education refers to non-formal, experience-based learning activities built on archival documents. These educational sessions focusing on different historical topics are interactive and inquiry-based, adapted to the different age groups, and implemented in the buildings of the archives. And the archival education supports the teaching of history by helping students understand that archival documents are fundamental sources of historical knowledge, making Hungarian history more real and more engaging. As a result, I think that archival education represents an innovation for both public education and archival institutions. In the archives, students are not passive learners, but active participants who work with original archival sources. The key methodological approach is the inquiry-based learning. In our session, the students work in small groups using archival documents and digital databases to explore historical problems, analyze the sources critically, and construct knowledge themselves. This approach supports the development of essential competencies, including critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and digital literacy. I would like to emphasize that in the last decade, archival education has undergone a significant development in the National Archives of Hungary. One key example is that the range of educational programs has been continuously expanding, and the archives are becoming increasingly recognized and discovered by new audiences. For example, in the last year, around 6,700 primary and secondary school students participated in our archival educational sessions. Another key example is the educational pages. This is a website which provides digital educational content based on our archival sources. These materials are connected to the National History curriculum, including a variety of tasks such as archival source analysis, creative exercises, and different type of games. These digital materials are designed for different age group, and I think that it's very important because they can also be used in classroom settings, allowing archival documents and archival content to become part of everyday public education. In addition, interactive applications, student-centered projects, and collaborative initiatives such as virtual exhibitions further expand the educational reach of the archives and create new opportunities for the engagement. These developments, which can see in the National Archives of Hungary, demonstrate that archives are not only repositories of documents, but also active educational actors. And they create opportunities for experiential learning with authentic sources and development of historical thinking and the research skills of the students. To conclude, I think that archival education at the National Archives of Hungary shows how cultural institutions can play a meaningful role in education by connecting past and present through active and student-centered learning. Through this development, the archival institution can gain new target audiences and become more visible and accessible to students within the framework of public education, and reinforcing their role as active participants in the education. And the last development of the National Archives of Hungary is that the archival education has been introduced into university level training at Eötvös Loránd University, one of the most well-known university in Hungary, as a dedicated course for archival studies students, and further strengthening its professional position within archival institutions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. We now open the session for questions and comments from the audience. And maybe just to remind you, Bridget shared with us on cooperation between national archival institutions and universities. We have Magda, who shared on historical and contemporary developments in Polish archival education and current pedagogies challenges. We had Adam, who shared on integrating climate change and environmental responsibility into archival education. And lastly, we just had Laura on archival education within a national archival institution and its implications for professional formation. May we share our comments or questions. Firstly, I see to Adam, how far ahead can your students go when thinking in these future users? What type of skills can we use as educators to instill this type of future user? Adam, do you get the question?
Sure. Yeah. It looks like actually there's two questions for me here. So I'll just take both of them really quick. Thanks for the question, Alan. The phrase I often use really kind of almost as an offhand is we're trying to imagine users who haven't been born yet, but that's not really all that far ahead, right? If someone's born tomorrow, then they haven't been born yet as of today. So, I think this is one of the challenges of our field in general, right? What type of skills can we use as educators to instill this type of future user? I think one of the key things is to sort of emphasize, kind of both continuity and change, disruption across the history of records management, archival work, information management, whatever you want to call it. I think it's really hard for people to imagine something 100 years in the future, much less 1,000 years in the future. And yet, if you think about how much of our culture is still influenced by stories, records, et cetera, from 1,000 years in the past, you understand that people have been preserving this information for that long. What that means for us as educators, I don't know. It's tough to say. For me, it's just something that I try to just talk about. I don't really have a strategy beyond making sure that students really understand that and understand that archival education is actually unique, even amongst the information professions, amongst LIS and the information professions, where other people, librarians or more technical IT type of professionals, they may not be thinking about this in the long term, even in a 100-year time scale. So one thing I emphasize with my students is that perspective, the archival perspective, is unique, important, and special. So I'll say that. And then second question, how do you discuss the use of AI in archives and archival science with students from a climate security perspective? This is a significant and pressing issue. So I'll just admit that when we first wrote this article, that wasn't necessarily really a part of the conversation. It was a couple of years ago. And I would say that AI and archives was really quite nascent. So we don't talk about it much in the article. However, I would say that when I talk about this with my students, the environmental issues are one of the key issues that they bring up in contemporary conversations. There's a lot of questions and issues about AI that I think are probably beyond the scope of this answer briefly. But I would say that when students are considering the risks and benefits of AI in this field and also more broadly, they absolutely understand how important energy and climate questions are for the level of investment that we ought to do with this type of technology. And this is a person who submitted anonymously, but if you want to reach out and talk about this more, you can find my email address online if you just search my name. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. We have a question for Magda. Magda, do you address the question of archivist agency in the archival workflow in any form throughout your BA, MA courses? Magda?
Thank you, Chaba, for this question. That's quite an interesting one. So I definitely won't be able to, analyze all the courses now, because at any given semester we have got dozens of them, right? Having both bachelor's and master's and all years full of students. But now I think that, yes, there are definitely some moments when we teach our students that archivists do have impact on the archival workflow. I think definitely during the classes about collecting archival materials, we have got this thing that's actually in direct translation. It's called shaping archival collections, which means that this is what archivists in archival institutions, this is what they do when they contact records creators, for example, collaborating on records management rules, shaping these rules, how record creators create their own records, how they describe them, what they do with them, and stuff like that. So definitely there is this connection that archivists do impact the archival field in this way. Then definitely in the description process, we teach them that how you describe archival materials is how it will be used by the users in a way. And then I can say that definitely I do this as part of my course on community archives. Then there is this very obvious connection that community archivists actually impact these activities from the very beginning till the very end. And generally I would say that this archivist's agency in the archival workflow is present in several different courses in very different way. Thank you.
Thank you, Magda. There's another question for you. Are you able to see it?
Yeah, I will read out the question if you don't mind.
Yes,
I
please, go
understand
ahead.
Magda actively engages with community archives. I'm curious whether Birgit and Laura, coming from public state archives, engage with other types of archival institutions in their pedagogy, such as this Estonian folklore archives in Tartu or Open Society archives in Budapest. So after all, this is not a question for me.
All right, can we hear from Bridget and Laura?
Oh, yes. So I can answer as far as I know. Of course, all the different archival institutions are involved in the archival education system. And then also they mentioned the Estonian folklore archives in Tartu. But still, I have to just say that in Estonia, we are having a quite a how to say, a simple system. We just have, as being a small nation, small country, we are having the one state-run huge archival institution, the National Archives. There is no other that kind of source-based or recorded evidence-based institution. Of course, the folklore archives, the oral history, the museums having their vast collections of personal archival content, and more the diaries and oral history projects, and even the recordings, sound recordings, video recordings with them. We all are working tightly together in that sense. So it is kind of easy way of communicate and cooperate in a small country as Estonia is, and that is the positive side of all the education system here.
Thank you, Bridget. Laura, do you have something to add?
Yes, the National Archives of Hungary have collaboration and educational collaboration with other public archives in Hungary. For example, the Archives of State Security, or for example, the Jewish archives. So we try to cooperate in educational projects because we think that together we are better, and we can use the materials of other archives too, and we can try this collaborate to publish. And for example, in this collaborative project, you can reach in the internet. And for example, we organize professional programs for the teachers. So we would like to emphasize that these collaborations are very useful for the students and for the teachers too.
All right, thank you. I see we have more questions, but our time is up. Our time is up. What should I do? Sophie, we take the questions?
You're more than welcome from our point of view to continue with the questions, and any of the attendees who are able to stick around or more than welcome.
All right, thank you. There's a question from Magda. The case of dropouts or failure to complete their degree program is quite disturbing. Do you assist prospective students with career guidance before they join the university? What are the employment prospects after graduation?
Okay, so about this, that it is a disturbing stuff. I mean, we got quite used to this. I mean, in a sense, you can see this as disturbing, but in a way, this is the way our students look for what they want, actually. And this is not very unusual that somebody starts, I don't know, they go to law school, but they don't like it. Maybe it's too hard. Then they try history, but they are not interested. And then they go to archival science. It works or it doesn't work. So in a way, this is a regular process for some of the students of just looking for what they want to do. And whether we assist prospective students with career guidance before they join the university, I think we don't. I mean, it's done in high schools, for example, or they can do this on their own while before they decide where they want to apply to, which university, which program. So they make up their mind based also on some types of guidance, but we as a university don't provide that, but we do provide proper description of the program. So we describe the content, we describe potential prospects for the people who graduate. And that's the next question, actually. What are the employment prospects after graduating from our program, I assume? So we actually have been doing quite extensive studies of our alumni. So we've been having, in contact with them, and a lot of them work in this profession, understood quite broadly, also as records managers, as administrative staff at public offices, as people in museums, in historical archives, in different types of heritage institutions as well. But some of them don't work in the profession. But I think that this dynamic and this phenomenon of dropouts looks very different from a perspective of a European country with free higher education, where actually you can spend some time on, checking out different programs, and it doesn't cost you a lot, actually. And then after all, you graduate, and then, well, you even decide to start a different career. What I'm thinking about is the American version of that, and you end up with usually quite a big debt and with an uncertain career sometimes. So I think this is this phenomenon of dropouts has got a very different taste according to the location, depending on the location.
Thank you so much, Magda. We have one last question. I notice it's my student. He's asking about staff training for archivists. Can somebody just take it, Laura or Bridget?
I may just add that we don't have any special program for our archivists, because the archivist, while graduated already the university courses and starting to work at the archives, they are professionals. Of course, step by step, year by year, the experiences increase, and in that sense also how to educate the youngsters will also take some more time, but no special programs in that sense in our system.
Thank you so much. Let me take this time to thank you all the speakers for your insightful presentations and the audience for those questions. I would also like to thank all the contributors of the Archival Pedagogies, the editors, Magda, James, Pim, and myself, of course, and the reviewers and Litwin Books for organizing these panels. Thank you, everyone who has joined us today. Your participation is what makes these exchanges very meaningful. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.